Good day, people. This is Adek. We are on exploitation. How to avoid exploitation. Well, how to avoid exploitation in the marketplace, in the workplace. Uh, we actually have advertised this topic. It was about literally 4 months ago, whereby we wanted to actually talk about this topic. It's one of the most toughest topics because you have to touch base in 5 different elements: union, government, companies, employees. You know, you can mention all of them, labor laws, but I'm going to be very brief. I'm not going to actually take much of your time. I'm just going to actually take few minutes of your time just to make you understand how to avoid exploitation in the workplace. You know, because the most important thing is that when you have a job, when you are employed, when you are working for a specific company, you've got to understand that exploitation is going to be there. If there is a company, and if there is an employee, and if there is an employer, there will be an exploitation. Someone is going to be exploited in that workplace. But what happens? What happens? What makes the exploitation to exist in the workplace? Well, there are many things that makes that to happen in the company. First, it can be maybe the policies of the company are not understood clearly. They are not understood clearly. You understand, about the people that have to carry them out, and the employees on the other side, they don't understand the legislation or the legislation of the organization and the regulations of the organization. And the other thing is that, you know, a wrong person is placed in the wrong department or in the wrong position, and that person might define what it is expected from him or her, that he is actually exploited, you know. Because, like, if you take a person, I'll make an example. You are employing a person who is a qualified agriculturist. You go and put that person in a department of technology or in a company that specializes with technology. It doesn't matter whether that person is a receptionist or that person is an administrative person, whether that person is a floor manager in a specified, department. But the bottom line is that you cannot. It doesn't balance. At some point, that person is going to be, you know, left behind with the system of the company or the system that is just utilized by the company. So what happens when that happens? Obviously, that person is going to be seen by the person that is, let's say I am a client or you are a customer that goes to a company that specializes in technology, and you are a qualified IT specialist, you know. So you arrive there, you know the language that must be used and all of that. Obviously, if that person doesn't smile, you don't smile with animals. I mean, a person that has done agriculture, obviously, he's got that mentality, that is going to deal with, farming and all of that, animals and all of that. So you've got to understand when you're in technological industry or IT department, you've got to understand that you're going to be working with people, professionals, people that know what they do. You understand? So now you meet that person. Once you've met that person, what happens? You're expecting a person that's going to give you a smile, that's going to wow you with the service, But literally you meet that person doesn't, it's not part of his or her culture that he must actually greet you with a smile and all of that. And then how are you going to feel? You're going to feel odd. You're going not to understand. Maybe it's a culture of, you're going to paint everything that is happening from that point of interaction with that person, as a sort of like a culture of that organization, you know. And then when you start to meet with a person that you have had an appointment with, and that person start to grasp that you are not free, and then a professional person will understand that this person didn't get a proper service somewhere, because the expectation of that customer to the person that is actually servicing, I'm referring to the person that he had an appointment on, not the first person that he or she met when he was coming in. So it was it's going to be kind of, I wonder what's going to happen now, And then literally the person that is actually servicing, that customer is going to realize that the person that came in that met my client didn't do a good service. You're going to start to give a sort of like a funny approach. I don't want to, to be sarcastic and all of that. A crude approach or a gross now is going to give a funny approach to that person. And then what happens? Can you imagine if 5 people have gone through all of that? 5 people have met that person who is a qualified agriculturist, or he has a degree or a diploma in agriculture. He is meeting with a professional that has got an IT, maybe information system and all of that, in an industry of technology, of a professional expected, yeah. So just think of that. So that is how exploitation happens, That person is going to feel exploited if he's not actually. That's why it's important that you get to be trained. You got to train your employees. You got to take them into a specified training that will make them meet the company's objectives and the policies. So what happens when you do that? You've got employees that know what and not to do. It becomes a culture of the company. I made it very clear that once everything has been done accordingly, you've got unions. You've got unions, you've got government, you've got organizations, which is companies, you've got employees, you've got, and all of that. So exploitation is going to be minimized if that employee has been trained. Point number 1. Point number 2, there won't be any conspiracy from employee side to the company. We are badly treated. This company is so and so and so, and unions will be put at ease. Point number 3. And the point number 4 is that, when it comes to a company that is doing, the best that it could to train its employees, what's going to happen? It's going to be a best company to work for, because the employees, they will understand the culture of the organization. They will understand what is needed by the company. Then that company will start to attract, bigger piece of cake when it comes to clientele. More customers would prefer to be actually serviced by that company. Now let's look at the value that will be added by that company to the state. You must remember that these are sort of like donuts that can add more value to our economy. Can you imagine? Out of 15 companies, we've got 10 companies that are very successful. They are actually cutting the profits. They are meeting their objectives. They actually return their revenue on a year-to-year basis. We're going to have sort of like a state that is actually met in terms of tax returns, tax revenues, because a company that is profitable, obviously that company is going to be able to pay its tax, and then it's going to actually employ more people. Then people will be, if you have a state that is actually having people that can afford to live life accordingly, the state is going to actually, is going to be in a good position. And look at this one. Listen very carefully. You know, the GDP is going to be increased on a year-to-year basis. The GDP is going to be increased, and the unions, they're going to be put at ease, and the government won't actually have sort of a time, you know, to actually have to intervene into companies that are doing exploitation to its employees. I said I'm going to be very short. This is what will happen. So the most important thing is that to avoid exploitation in the workplace, the company must add value, must train its employees, right? And the employees, they must adapt to that training. And the employees must be able to understand that these are the expectations from the company side, right? And the unions, they will be put at ease, you know. Can you imagine if you have unions that are actually are understood by the employees? I can bet to you that you will never have strikes. You'll never have sort of like a, insubordination of employees to its companies or unions to its state. Because when there is a clash between employees and employer, obviously there will be a clash between unions and the states. Because I mean, when unions are actually unions are not happy, then there's actually a delay when it comes to state being able to actually make its revenue from those companies and all of that. Because if unions are striking, then there's no work that is taking place. Companies are closed. Companies will close. And when companies are closing and unions are saying that if this and this and this is not met, so what? Then this company cannot employ people because it's not doing what is proper. You understand? So hence I'm saying that these are terms that can be utilized to avoid exploitation in the workplace. Now, let's find out what must happen. Which are these companies? Okay, let's find out why do we allow exploitation to happen? We allow exploitation to happen if we employ wrong people if you employ wrong people in your organization, in your company, obviously you're going to let that exploitation to happen. Because you must remember that your job is your main source of income, and it is actually your source of ability, we understand, and it is a reason for being accepted in the community, we understand, and also it is your main source of self-esteem, we understand. So if an individual has got a good esteem, if he's working, self-esteem, if he's well employed, then the society is united. It starts from one person to another, and the community becomes a sort of like a sort of a self-esteemed community and all of that. But I just want to mention to you the 5 types of work exploitation that you need to understand, which is those are exactly what I've mentioned. But I'm not going to actually take much of your time. I just want to share 5 best companies in South Africa that are doing the right thing at the moment. I haven't been bought by these companies, but I'm just actually telling you the companies that are cutting it, companies that are doing it. These 5 companies that are doing the right thing, right? Number 1, it's Avenge, Discovery, Old Mutual, Absa, and Sanlam. They are the best companies to work for. Thank you, people. Thank you for